Well, welcome back to the channel, Reverend Dr. J.W. Morrison, theologist, here at Botany Bay. And out there, at those heads there, that's where the first settlers come in to this bay, Botany Bay. It's quite an amazing bay. Perfect place to land, fully sheltered. And it does get, as the wind comes up out here, it does get rough. But this is where a lot of kiters and hydrofoilers foil. A wing foiler hit a whale here just a couple of days ago. Just out there, he ran into a whale. It was on the news. They showed the footage. I don't know who was filming it, but it was good timing. And they showed this winger run into a whale. It was amazing. And that would have been a shock because, as a winger myself, you wouldn't know if that was a shark or what it was. Later, to only find out it was a whale. The panic. The sense of what have I just hit, and that thing was alive. And this can be the case in a relationship. What you've got to understand, a lot of people don't realize what their condition is, what is happening to them. Where I get a little bit surprised, for all the years and years of being a minister and prison, going into boys' homes and working on the streets with strangers and all this other stuff, and the thousands of hours of theological study and all this other stuff, thousands of words, tens of thousands of words you have to write, books and all this other stuff, and books in terms of submissions of bachelor and masters and doctorate degrees and all this sort of thing. Is that everybody's different and everybody's variable, and people can move over a range of personality disorders. And trying to navigate alongside that can be very, very difficult. And this is where a lot of things break down. They break down because it's hard to keep up with the variables that some people have in their character and personalities. You almost today need to be a psychologist, some kind of psychologist or psychiatrist, to be able to navigate a relationship. Alternatively, you just have to be ignorant. You just have to have this capability to be able to ignore obvious things that are going to be tormenting. And for some people, that's just too hard. If something's aggravating me and I know it needs to be addressed because ultimately it's going to lead to trouble, then I want to address it. I'm one of these people that will address that situation, and I'll do it as courteously as I can and as positively as I can. But that's not usually a guarantee that that's going to be enough. That's not necessarily a guarantee that that's going to be enough for that person to be able to respond in a way in which they're going to be able to transform or to adjust or adapt. There's no guarantees anymore. The basic, simple principles of give, take care, and share become, in a way, so distant and so perplexing to the masses that in so many cases they just are not able to adapt in an unselfish way. I guess in a lot of ways it comes back to selfishness. It comes back to this blindness that flows out of our sinful nature, our evil nature, that drip feeds, without us even being conscious of it, our problems into our system, into our minds. Now you add to that a person that wants to be with you, but's unable to adapt to you, but you're trying to adapt to them, that is complex. That is so complex. That is so complex. This is great watching these guys play volleyball. They're training for volleyball. And that's complex because a lot of people are so set in their ways, particularly at my age, nearly 60. I've had relationships with, right across the spectrum up to 60-year-old women. It's very difficult for these people to adapt. A lot of these people are unable to adapt. It's hard for them. They're set in their ways. You come along, your culture and idea of how to think and stuff may not be the same as theirs. And so there's an element of where we have to have patience and flexibility. But sometimes we're not prepared to do that because it conflicts with our values and standards. But that doesn't mean that we're absolutely right. Now, I've had relationships with addicts and drunkards and all this other stuff, and their principles change. Their principles change because their psyche changes when they inebriate or induce their substances into their systems, and that's hard to adapt to. Some become aggressive, some just go silent. And let me just say to you, silence is not a guarantee that everything's all right. There's a lot of stuff that can be going on inside a silent person, resentments, bitternesses, and unresolved deluxe that can just ruin the whole construct of what appears to be a nice, quiet, running smoothly relationship, when underneath you've got a ticking time bomb that's just ready to explode. Yeah, silence isn't a guarantee that everything's all right, let me assure you. In a lot of cases where there's silence, there's an emotional affair possibly going on in the background that you would not have a clue about. And this person's venting all their grievances with you on somebody else, and the next thing they're in bed with somebody else because they haven't got. See, what a lot of people. This is what really causes trauma. When you've put 20 years into a marriage or whatever the case is, and you've done the hard slog to pay the mortgages and the bills, and you've shared thousands of hours with somebody, and you've done all the stuff that's had to happen and gone through all the stresses that have had to happen to make the relationship work. And then somebody just comes along that hasn't done anything, and your partner gravitates towards that person because there's no pressure related to that person, but also there's no responsibility. That's about as evil as it gets. Can you see the harm and the trauma and the betrayal that causes? It's so bad. Because you've gone through this fire, this tremendous lifelong effort of decades to build something positive with these people, with your partner. And it just, somebody comes along that just hasn't done anything. They haven't done anything to contribute to anything. And all of a sudden, your partner is with somebody else. That's just what life can do to you. We're not culturalized to believe this or accept that this could happen, but it happens. It's happened to me twice. Luckily, I'd had enough partners in my younger life, primary school and high school, to understand that anything could happen at any moment. The only thing was, in my first marriage, I didn't believe that somebody could be married, even though I grew up in a family like this, could be married and let it all fall to pieces after decades of hard work. That's the power of the sinful nature. That's the power of human nature and how destructive and unreliable it really is. But the human spirit is different. It is reliable. It's just a lot of people spirit are undermined by evil spirits. So you've got the sinful nature working against the soul, and then the evil spirits combining that, on the other hand, to undermine the human spirit. And you've got this diabolical blend that just pulls everything apart. We need to culturalize ourselves to understand that a lot of this isn't deliberate. It's just the construct, the matrix of evil that works against humanity. And I just want to say again, as I wrap this up, don't underestimate silence and what's going on in the mind of the person that you're with, because they're the ones that do the most damage if you haven't got the discernment. If you haven't got the discernment to understand what's really going on in the mind of your partner without being a smotherer or a control freak and things, if your partner's one of these people that, is so silent, something's just not right, then you need to communicate. You need to be aware and prepared that things may not be as they appear to be. I'm Reverend Dr. J.W. Morrison, theologist, Central Coast, New South Wales, Australia.